This episode of Phil Dellio's Clipography has been brought to you by Heineken.
Are you okay to do Ghost
Yeah,
World?
let's do
Okay.
Ghost World.
Because I just watched it tonight. I wanted to make sure. I hadn't seen it in a long time. And it's such
Okay.
an interesting film. You go ahead, Scott.
Well, I've only seen Ghost World once when it came out. I've been wanting to see it again. I think I've only seen it once. I've watched this. Well, I've watched probably the better known music scene many times. We'll talk about what you chose, obviously, but
Okay.
one that a lot of people talk about, and we've been talking about on various other episodes of this, is the Skip James "Devil Got My Woman," and we don't need to go into it too much because I think we've already described it.
Yeah.
But that's a really important scene musically. But you chose a very interesting one, actually, the introduction to the movie, which is, let me see, I don't even know if I want to try and pronounce.
Oh, I was trying to work out
Jaan, Pehechaan, Ho, who knows?
Yeah. You know what? I should have had
Oh, that's the song. Sorry. Yeah, that's how bad I am. Jaan, Pehechaan, Ho might be the song, and it's by Mohammed Rafi is the artist, I think. So
what
I've got it listed as.
Yeah, sorry.
And actually, I have your book right here in front of me, too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm trying to look it up online. I've got 2 copies of the book right here. Ghost World. Hold on a second.
Yeah, it's really the song title that's kind of a mouthful. Jaan, Pehechaan, Ho.
Jaan, Pehechaan, Ho. That sounds good, by Mohammed Rafi.
Yeah.
And I sure hope, boy, I would have double checked that. I sure hope Rafi only has 1 F instead of 2. Anyway, yeah, it is the opening credits to the film.
And it's very interesting. I'll just say, because I did watch it again before coming on tonight. And what's neat about it, maybe this occurred to me, I don't think you mentioned it specifically in your write-up, but I was taken aback a little bit because you don't realize until about 3/4 of the way through, at least unless I missed something, but you don't realize that it's Enid, the character, actually watching this big dance-a-thon on TV. It just seems like it's part of the movie itself or something. Like it's got that weird, it's the weird meta sort of thing at play there or something. So
when I watched it tonight, yeah, you're absolutely right. My first thought was that, I don't know if you remember, the first character you see is, I think it's an Indian woman. I mean, I should have gone back and checked, and she seems to be sitting in her apartment, watching something. And my first thought was, okay, she's watching the song. But you're right, it's not her. It's actually Enid. It starts where you hear the song right away. You hear the drum beat. It's got this great opening drum beat that almost sounds like the famous jazz song, Sing, Sing, Sing.
Right.
The Benny Goodman. But then it goes into, if I were to try to describe that song to anyone who hasn't heard it, it's just wild. It sounds instrumentally, almost the closest analogy I could think of. It sounds sort of like surf music.
That's what I was thinking.
Or Dwayne Eddy. But then it's got this. It's from a Bollywood film, I think, and it's got just a really catchy but insane vocal. I was thinking it's almost like the song that I was thinking. If I were to compare it to anything, it's like the Gangnam Style of the mid '60s.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And it's just crazy. It's such a purely crazy rock and roll thing. One of those
completely frenetic, eh?
Yeah, one of these things that would turn it, you know, the Lux Interior and Ivy from the Cramps used to put together these compilations of all these bizarre songs. It'd be the kind of thing you'd expect to show up on that. So the song's playing, and it's got sort of a rear window touch where the camera's looking at this little. It looks to be a very I don't know, not even middle class, lower class, and yet Enid's family seems pretty well off. She's with her father. Anyways, you get these glimpses through the windows of people leading what look to be fairly desperate lives. You got this woman sitting alone, sad expression on her face. This other guy sitting alone eating. You've got this married couple with their son, their young son, who's just hammering something.
Yeah.
And they're
doing
sitting
it
there
almost to the beat a little bit, right? But not too obviously so.
And they're not smiling. It's like they just sit there. God knows they put up with this every night. And then finally you go to Enid, who's dancing in her room, and you're right. There's the television. She's the one that's watching this. So my first thought when I watched it tonight was, okay, come on, give me a break. Is she watching a video? Is she watching TV? Where would she have access to this crazy thing? Well, that's explained. She borrows, if you go on to watch the film, there's this guy from the comic book store who provides her. He refers to it as an Indian dance instructional video.
Wow.
And this guy's funny. He doesn't get along well at all with Enid. It's got this great scene where she dyes her hair green, and then she shows up at the comic book store, and he just ridicules her something ridiculous. And she's embarrassed. She storms off. He's really funny, you know, saying, "Don't you know punk rock's over?" But he says it in a really dry, sardonic way. And then the money she owes him, she throws the bills at him. He goes, "Oh, that's so punk rock." So anyway, that's why she's watching this. She's watching a video, and the video's insane. It's one of those big Bollywood production numbers. Everybody's got masks on their face.
Yeah.
And, guys singing this song. It's got this woman in gold lame surrounded by dancers. You know, I mean, it's beyond description. You got to see it. And
so when it's obviously must be like it is legitimate older footage from something, right? That he inserted into the movie. Like it's not a creation. I mean, the quality it certainly doesn't look like TV quality or something. So
I never checked into it, but I have to believe it's original Bollywood footage. I mean, I would be so impressed if Terry Zwigoff actually could, you know, hired all these people and choreographed.
Yeah.
Looks totally legitimate to me. In fact, I think it is.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be. Yeah.
Yeah, because I read the Wikipedia entry, and it was just you know, some crazy film, and it was probably a hit in India. And I just remember the first time, maybe we could have even seen the film together, Scott.
I think we did. Yeah, I think we did see it together.
Good chance we did. And I just remember, because we were probably both fans of Crumb at the time, so it comes out almost a decade after Crumb. And I meant to check tonight to see if he'd done anything in the interim. I'm not sure if he went right from Crumb to Ghost World. He must have done something. I think I'm wrong. I think Ghost World, I said 2005. I think it's 2001, actually.
Okay.
So that's a 7-year gap. He must have done something in that time. I just remember sitting almost bolt upright in the theater. Like, this is amazing. What is this song? I never heard anything like it. And it just got me in such a good frame of mind for the rest of the film. But I was very impressed when I watched it tonight. It's just a really good film. It's good in a number of ways. It reflects on the situation of, I'll say guys like me. I don't want to necessarily say guys like us because I don't want to drag you into this. But I mean, you're kind of the same, Scott. People who got the collecting bug. You know, I mean, we don't necessarily collect. You've always had it for print media, certainly, and all your scrapbooks and everything, and books and CDs.
Yeah.
And Steve Buscemi is such an interesting character. His thoughts on this.
Yeah, I love Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like the way his obsessions. And these two teenage girls and the other one, Scarlett Johansson, they're so mean at the beginning. You know, how those worlds overlap is, I don't know how much you remember, but they play that prank on him where they find a personal ad that he's taken out, and they call and pretend it's he takes out an ad saying it took me back to Now, or the back of Now in the early 90s. I answered 2 or 3 personal ads. And people used to put in sightings where, you know, I saw you such and such. I thought there was a connection. He puts in one of those and they call pretending to be the woman. And they arrange for a meetup and they sit in there and they watch him as he waits for hours.
I do remember that now,
Yeah. And they're so mean and they follow him, and then they go back there, and that's where he's out selling records, and that's where the story starts. But they're so nasty, both of them at the beginning.
And since the movie is fresh in your mind, so aside from the opening song and the Skip James, is there any other notable music? Actually, is that the movie that has the funny, Marcus has referred to that really, is that the one with the really bad blues band? Blues Hammer? That's a great name. And he actually sort of likes the song. Like, he says it's so ridiculous, but it actually sounds good. Like
Marcus does, Marcus
actually says it should be the most ridiculous thing in the world, but there's a power to it or something, he says.
No,
like he doesn't overrate it, but he just...
Okay. Marcus is wrong. It's god-awful.
Okay.
It's just horrible. It's horrible. I mean, I'm surprised because it's this white guy in his 20s, and he's talking about picking cotton, and he's screaming, you know? And that's the scene where Enid, actually, he goes there to this bar. There's a real blues guy that Seymour worships, and he has an original 78 by him that he wants to get autographed, and he's gone to see this guy. And we do catch a glimpse of him playing, and Seymour's mad. Steve Buscemi's character is mad because they're playing sports and no one's paying attention to him. And then Enid says, look, there's a woman you should be interested in. So she walks over, gets this woman to come sit down with Steve Buscemi, and they have a real awkward conversation about, he becomes very pedantic about blues music because she says, oh, that guy was great. And he goes, don't you love blues music? He goes, well, really, that technically wasn't blues. It was ragtime. And he gets very pedantic.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and she's just staring. She gets a blank look, and then she goes, well, if you like blues, you're going to love Blues Hammer. And then Blues Hammer comes on. They're awful. To answer your question, there's one other piece of music that you might remember. It's a really good scene. They used the Buzzcocks.
Ever Fallen in Love with someone?
I think it's Have You Ever Fallen in Love? And that's when she dyes her hair green.
Okay.
And she's
sort of remember
around.
it.
Yeah, she's dancing around her room to it. And first her dad comes in and interrupts, and then Scarlett Johansson comes into her room.
So
that's really the only other piece of music. The other thing is, it's got the worst. We talk about all these great high school proms. It's got the worst. It's funny, the most depressing high school prom ever. And it's just those two making fun of everybody there and being snarky. At the prom, or it's not really even it seems to be an after party. Anyway, they've got this really cheesy cover band, and what do? They do. Why don't I mark this stuff down? They do a cover of some song, and that's pretty bad. And then later, when Seymour goes on his first date with this woman, Dana, actual date, she wants to dance, and I think it's like a Whitney Houston type song, and she can't get him up to dance. So those are the only other real uses of music.
Okay.
जान पहचान हो जीना आसान हो जान पहचान हो जीना आसान हो
Do you remember the ending of the film?
Nope.
So that was really intriguing me tonight. I'll keep this short. It's got this running thing through the film where Thora Birch's character, Enid, she always sees this old man at a bus stop. Oh, he's maybe early 70s or so. And he's waiting for a bus.
Right.
And Scarlett Johansson and her, they always see him. And he seems to be waiting for a bus that never comes. And they even walk up to him. And Thora Birch tells him, she says, don't you know this bus line was discontinued? There's no bus that runs here anymore. And he just doesn't really listen to her. And he says, what's your name, Norman? And she says, no bus is coming. He says, well, I don't agree with that. And we've run into him a couple more times. He's still waiting for a bus. And then when her life falls apart, it has a great, I love scenes in films where someone's life just completely falls apart. Everybody's abandoned her. Seymour's angry at her. Scarlett Johansson's angry at her. She's sitting in her room crying. Anyway, she goes back to the bus stop and she says, Norman, you're the only person in my life I can depend on because I know that you're always going to be here, meaning this bus is never coming. And he goes, well, you'd be surprised. And the film kind of ends where she kind of mends her problems with both Norman and Scarlett Johansson. She's looking at Norman. She goes back to the bus stop. She's looking, and sure enough, the bus comes and takes Norman away.
Wow.
And then the film actually ends with her getting on sitting at the same bench and getting on a bus. So, it was intriguing at the time. It's still intriguing how you take that. Do you take that as a positive ending? I think most people would take it as a positive ending. But to me, if you think about it, there's another interpretation, and it's a really negative ending in that you think back to where she says to Norman, you're the only person that I can count on. I know you're always going to be here because this bus is never coming. And then she watches even him get on the bus and leave. So, it's one of those, it's a great ending because everybody's going to read it differently.
Well, and you did bring it back to me, and I definitely remember the guy at the bus stop. I'm also wondering, maybe I was actually thinking before of just the title Ghost World kind of intrigues me, and I wonder if there's a little bit of it's playing into that idea a little, because it is sort of a sad film in the sense, and it's kind of very Crumb-like in that way, in that it is about a sort of it feels like there's something about a disappearing world at play in that movie or something. I'm being pretty vague about it, but I just get that sense from it. Obviously with the title, like Ghost World,
Well, you're right. It's all based on a comic book, and I'm not a comic book guy. It's some Daniel Clowes, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Clowes. So, I think that is, now I assume the comic book is also called Ghost World. I don't know. But
I think it is, yeah.
Whether the title comes from the comic book or the film, I think absolutely, you're right. That's really the feeling you get. Like Seymour is almost this remnant of this ghost.
Yeah.
And wasn't it you that told me, or maybe we were wondering, remember she goes to his record collector party?
I know what you're going to say, I think.
Yeah, was one of those characters based on Marcus?
It looks like, I think we leaned over during the movie and said, is that guy based on Grill Mark? Like, it just was so weird. Like, he had the same sort of like round glasses or something, what I recall.
Yeah.
I
think
knows?
it's the guy.
I wouldn't be, it could be even a bit of a, just a funny, not jab at him, but a little bit of because, obviously someone like Terry Zwigoff would probably know of Marcus through writing about Robert Johnson and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know.
Sure.
I'm
sure. It's got a great Crumb joke because when she goes, she's flipping through Seymour's records, when they're basically there just making fun of him. Every time he says something, Scarlett Johansson and this is where they're so mean, she smirks and laughs. Anyway, she's flipping through the records. She grabs one. She says, well, how's this? And she holds up a Robert Crumb album because he cut it of albums, Robert Crumb and the Cheap Suits.
Okay.
And Buscemi says, no, you don't want that. That's not very good. I think Crumb and Terry Zwigoff are best friends. So, it's like an affectionate joke. That was kind of nice. you get a chance, I don't know if you have it at home or, if you don't have it at home, there's no way you're going to see it. But you should watch it a second time.
Oh,
It
no, I
really-
want to see. I definitely
Yeah.
would watch that again for sure. I mean, I
It
liked
really
enough
holds
that-
up well.
Yeah.
It really does hold up well.
No, I liked it a lot. So
And it does have connections. And also Thora Birch's character connects to American Beauty. Those are her only 2 films. She met with, there's some sad story with her.
I was going to ask you about her career.
There's something with her and her father and mismanagement or I read it once, and there's a really sad story there why she became a pariah and nobody ever hired her after that.
Wow.
Nothing ever happened. I think she probably continues to get small parts almost on the strength of people that, even American Beauty, we've talked about how that's fallen into disfavor, but there are people that remember her in those 2 films, and she seems to get these honorary parts almost.
Yeah.
But she never think of where she went and think of where Scarlett Johansson went.
Yeah.
And she's the star of that. Scarlett Johansson is the supporting character.
And had Scarlett Johansson already been in any really big films before then? That was pretty early in her career too, right?
Yeah, because you know what? I think it comes out, I think 2 years before. I think Lost in Translation.
Before Lost in Translation, I'm sure.
Yeah, 2000, that's 2003, which is on, I might watch it tonight. It's on Hollywood Suite. It comes out 2 years before Lost in Translation. It's the first time I ever saw her. I don't know if she had done anything before that.
Okay.
She's very different in that film. When I think of her in Lost in Translation, she's so different. She's just this kind of sullen 16-year-old or 17-year-old in Ghost World. She's very different. But I was so glad I watched it again tonight, and it is a great scene. The opening credits for that wild, crazy song.
जान पहचान हो